All of the food we eat and much of the clothing we wear comes from plants and animals that are raised on farms. Farms are different in type, in size, and even in name.
Welcome to Barn Talk. What happens at the barn stays in the barn, but not today. We're going to let it all out for you guys. Today is going to be a guest episode. You know, we haven't had a guest come on the show in a while. Usually we like to keep our cadence to, a Q&A, a hot topics, then a guest. And that's kind of the cadence we like to stick on. But sometimes you just got to go with the flow. And here and there, we'll have 4 episodes of just Dad and I shooting the shit. And then we'll have 4 episodes back-to-back of guests coming on the show. It's just kind of how it rolls sometimes. But today we got a good guest in store for you guys. But before we get into it, you guys know the drill. Share the show with the people that you know if you get any value. You can get value from laughing about something, learning something, relating to us on something. However you got value from the show, all that we ask is that you just share it. The more that you guys do that, the more that this show can grow, the more people we can reach, the more episodes we can make, the more guests we can get on. And it's kind of the ticket to admission to watch or listen to the show. Another thing that you can do to help us out here at Barn Talk is leave a review on Spotify or Apple. The more that you guys do that, the more it gives our show credibility, because from outside the podcast world, if you look at podcasts, people are going to judge you on one thing, and that's your reviews. So the more reviews you guys leave, good reviews hopefully you leave, the better chance we can get more guests on to improve the show and the more episodes we can make. So it just helps the show out a lot. Last thing you can do to support us here at Barn Talk is support our direct-to-consumer meat business, Farmer Grade. FarmerGrade.com. We're running a cut of the week. We run a cut of the week every week, but our cut of the week this week is dry-aged filet mignon, 20% off. We got American Wagyu on there, pasture-aged chicken, pork that we raise on our farm, dry-aged beef, all from American farmers and ranchers showing what they do on social media that you can buy for you and your family from a trustworthy source. So that's what we got going on.
That's awesome. Everybody needs to hop on there and get something, because the way it's looking right now, that off-farm income is going to come in fairly handy, because the on-farm income, I don't know.
It's a little iffy.
It's a little iffy. The USDA report came out. Way more beans, way more ending stocks, pretty much way more, and they're just beating that like none other. The corn, 183 bushel average, and
To be expected.
And so that's the trend line. If you are in an area of Iowa that didn't get just piss pounded, or the Midwest, if you've been out and walked your fields, there's going to be a lot of corn out there that's going to be a lot better than that. And there is some crazy estimate numbers, at least in our neighborhood, and I'm sure a lot of places. Now, none of that matters till it is in the bin, goes over scale, but it's going to be pretty good. So we're thinking, it's going to be nip and tuck whether we're going to make it. We may have to have a sale, just cash out, and
Never.
Okay,
Never.
well, we might need another wagon or grain cart.
That's right.
Probably do need another wagon.
Probably not this year, but sometime.
Probably not. But we thought, damn, we talk a lot on here about land prices, machinery prices, and what's going on, what's up, what's down. And I think that's going to be with the slowdown. You've seen it. Kinsey laying off, Deere laying off, all these majors laying people off because this ag economy is slowing down. So we thought we should get somebody on here. We need a professional. And we couldn't find a professional, so we decided we'll bring in the ringer. And so, without any further ado, let's get started.
Greg Koch, welcome to Barn Talk.
Thanks. Glad to be here. Never knew this existed just like this when you only live
It's all
away.
It's all under wraps. We only let the special people get over, and like I said in the intro, we couldn't find a true professional, so we had to bring in the ringer.
Still looking, right?
Yep, still looking. You're on the bubble. You're on the bubble. We'll see how you perform today.
All right.
Okay.
See if I measure up.
Yeah. So for people that don't know who you are or what you do, give us a little background on KDK and Greg Koch specifically.
I'm still looking for who I am and what I
we
do,
all are.
But yeah, I live here in Washington County, and my wife and I farm a little bit. There's BTOs around, and we're kind of a LTO, little tiny operator, and we farm a little bit, have a small cow herd, and then we have this equipment business in town, and grown a lot over the last 7-8 years. So
yeah, when did you start? When did you start out here? How did you get here?
Here?
Yeah.
This chunk of hardware on my ring finger is
okay.
what brought me
She
here.
reeled you back.
She begged me, and I just
Soft.
put the sales pitch on me.
Yeah.
Here I am.
Absolutely. So she's the true salesman.
She is way better than I am.
Okay, well that brings up an important point. You're not from Kyoto, Iowa, but yet you have this nickname that like precedes you like you would be from Kyoto. So
Well, you're thinking of Kentucky.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. How
Why Kentucky? Why?
So yeah, that's. And do you want the 100% accurate truth, or do you want Greg
want the
Koch's
most-
version of the truth?
we want the
there's
most
one's a little bit-
entertaining version of the truth.
It's way more entertaining when my wife's here to punch me upside the head when I give my slant to it. But so I'm originally from Missouri, born and raised in southern Missouri, and I went to college in Kentucky,
Okay.
and I lived there for a few years. That's where I was when we got connected, and we were friends for several years. But the way I tell the story, and this is true, I swear. She was dating about 5 or 6 other Gregs at the time that she met me, and her friends kept me straight by calling me Kentucky Greg.
Okay.
And then it got shortened, and it was to the point where at our wedding, her maid of honor stood up and said, I didn't even know Kentucky's real name was Greg till I read it on the napkins, and that is true. And a lot of people in my personal life don't even know my real name.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And it threw me because I knew you by Greg before I knew Kentucky. And when, cause you are a member of the beef producers.
I remember the
Cattlemen's.
Cattlemen's board locally. Yep.
And we have a deal here in our county that's like a commodity. It's a commodity dinner. And, I was on that. I'm on the corn growers, and people be talking about Kentucky this and Kentucky that. And I knew Greg, and it took me like a few meetings before I realized that all of the speaking about Kentucky was actually Greg, which was good because then I put it together. I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds about right. So that's good. Well, you're the legend. You're building your own legacy.
There's way worse nicknames you can have.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely. That's
And-
100%
and
right.
It's got to the point now where, in some professional setting, my wife will refer to me as Greg, and I'm like,
oh,
who's this other guy you're talking about?
is that your naughty? If you screwed up, let me ask you, are you ever referred to as, like, if it's real bad, does she say Gregory, or does somebody in your family go Gregory? Or has that never been a deal?
That's never been a deal.
Okay, well, that's good.
That's
then.
never been a
You've
deal.
never
I mean-
screwed up that bad.
Oh
then.
no, I pure as wind-driven snow from the earliest times.
Okay, we're digressing already.
We are.
So you come back here, you get started here in Washington, but how did you start in auctioneering? Was that always a passion? Was that always what you?
I always liked the auction business, and I've always been a participant at auctions, and I always love that method of selling. It's true price discovery, right?
Yep.
And it was kind of a bucket list thing I wanted to do. I didn't become a licensed auctioneer till later in life,
Yep.
and just something I always wanted to do. And I think it was 2015 or so. I went to auction school.
Yep.
And I thought, I'm just going to do some hired gun stuff and work for, Dwight or somebody on the side.
When they need an extra guy.
Need an extra guy to help out, and thought it'd be a fun thing to do and not make a career out of. But
Yep.
some hired gun stuff, and that's kind of how that started. As far as the business, 6-8 months after that, I have a son with some medical issues, and I'd always wanted to run my own business at some point. That was always kind of a dream of my wife and I's, and when we're faced with this medical challenge, we thought, well, maybe this is our impetus to not work for the man.
Right.
And naively, you're going to have way more time and freedom and to running your own deal. So let's just start something and
The flexibility of owning your own business.
yes, the big lie, right? We started this. I tell everybody we started this business in our bedroom, and everybody kind of raises their eyebrows like, "Oh no, where's this conversation going?" But I really did, because I have 5 other children. I've had 5 children and at home, and the only place I could talk quietly on the phone was in the bedroom, away from all the racket. So we started in our house, and I worked for another ag retailer in the area for about 10 years and sold equipment for them, and I gave myself an exit window of 3 years or something like that.
Yeah.
But 3 months later, I walked in, shook hands, and thanked him for the opportunity, and we were off and running. So that was July of 2016. We started mid-July, and I think about into September, early October is when I was full-time on my own. So
Yeah.
Where can people find you if they want to find out more about your business or what you guys are doing?
We're everywhere. Our website is kdkgroup.com. Real simple.
Yep.
And we have a social media presence, Facebook, Instagram, and we're affiliated with Machinery Pete and Tractor House and all the big Machinio, Tractor Zoom, all the big platforms.
Yep.
How many auctions do you typically have, in a year, or how many auctions, or do you have a big auction coming up or something?
I do. So let me I'll just kind of back up just a second and tell you the scope of our business.
Yeah.
And we do, a lot of people drive by and, our auctions get the most press because we splash stuff everywhere and hang flyers up and banners and that kind of stuff. And people tend to think that aren't involved intimately in the equipment business that we're just an auction company, and that's really not how we started.
Yep.
And, but we do 4 major auctions a year, and a lot of little cleanup auctions or timely auctions that, I can do an auction on any Wednesday. I use Auction Time as a platform, and that allows me to do an auction at any time. But we have 4 big auctions a year. March, our Memorial Day hay season type auction, September, and end of year.
Yep.
We've got a September auction coming up. We call that our pre-harvest auction, September 18th, 19th. It'll probably extend 3 days depending on how much equipment flows in, but
But you also deal equipment too.
we do. So we started as a consignment only business, and our niche and how we really one of the things that grew this is we offered both listed advertisements and auction. So we could, you could list it for a while, roll it to auction. You could list it only. We could auction only. Just different tools in the toolbox to help make a consignor feel as comfortable as possible with with the process, and maybe have some control through it. Not always risk an auction, or list it for a time period and time the auction to market pressures. And so that's kind of how we started, and it gave us a little bit of advantage over companies that they're auction only.
Yeah. Right.
Take it or leave it.
Well, yeah. So like a question that I had was, this whole online auctioning thing has kind of it's sped up and gotten bigger as time's gone on. And you think that as that sped up, in-person auctions and, companies like yours might slow down, but it's kind of been the opposite of that. Why do you think that is?
Kind of answer that in one word.
Yeah.
The pandemic.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll say that the ag sector is, from a technology standpoint, has typically been a slower adopter. Historically. The construction industry was 15 years ahead of the ag industry when it came to online auctions and equipment liquidations via an online platform. So I think the pandemic led farmers, not necessarily dealers, but farmers kicking and screaming into the, and I'm generalizing, right?
Right.
Because social media would have done that eventually anyway.
Right.
But
It jump started.
It really was the motivator that moved a lot of the guys that would have taken a lot longer to get into that arena, into the digital or electronic form of marketing via auction. And there for a while, there was some concern that we would, the live auction would totally go away. And it did for a while.
Yeah.
But it's really coming back. People want that personal touch with the equipment. Yep. And there'll always be an online component to that going forward. But I think the live auction is here to stay with an online component. Some companies like us, I mean, we're primarily all online.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Are you doing some online stuff then too?
It's all online.
Yep.
Everything's online. We, I do some live bid calling for occasionally some charity stuff, or I've helped a couple other auctioneers here and there, with their online stuff. But as far as our platform, it's much easier with the size of our lot and where we're at to not have to handle traffic and everything, logistics from porta potties to load out, all that kind of stuff that comes into play on a live auction day. So
you don't have your own lunch trailer?
Oh no, but that would be the least of my problems.
Well, I was just thinking something else that has really changed it's gone for a while, but today you see a lot of these dealers, as there's been consolidation in equipment dealers. But the other thing that's changed is, like when I was a kid, so many of these implement dealers, they held on to stuff a long time. Like when you drive around a lot of these dealers, they really do not have much inventory. But when I was a kid, every one of these dealers, they had oodles of stuff, and a lot of them, they owned that. Like there was no floor plan like there is today, where John Deere financed it or Case financed it, and you had a floor plan. A lot of those guys, a lot of those earlier implement dealers, they owned the whole shoot match. Now granted, they might have a line of credit on it, but it was their stuff. And today, there's none of that. So you see so many annual or semi-annual bigger dealers that they just have an auction. Like they're only going to keep stuff
every
so
couple
long.
Years, a lot of times, yep.
And they got to turn it because they don't want that money tied up.
Well, not only that equipment ages so quickly. We call it lot rot.
Yep.
But it especially with technology on it and stuff, and electrical connections and that kind of stuff, when that sits, draws moisture, especially here in the Midwest, that stuff has to turn and has to be put into use, or the problems exponentially magnify.
Right. Eats up your or skyrockets your overhead if it's sitting on your lot and you've got to fix it after you've already traded for it or whatever.
Right.
So
to your point about inventory, a lot of people, that's a social thing to do, is run through the lot and see what's there, or kick tires or whatever. And that's one cool thing about our deal is we have regulars. Almost like clockwork. Everybody from just old guys with nothing else to do to even kids that their moms drive them through after school just to see what's new on KDK's lot.
Right.
That's kind of cool. And a lot of people comment on that.
Because there's not that at these dealers anymore.
Right.
There's just not much used equipment. That's pretty neat. I'd be one of those people. I always like perusing through.
Well, you can. Why don't you?
I do. I
go
just
kick some tires
because the predatory, the
vultures that swoop in on you.
It's like,
do you go pick up all the nails that are laying in our?
Throw them out there.
Yeah.
Used to.
Yeah.
Help out the tire store.
Yeah. Oh. I just pick up that tray that's sitting on the counter at Grinders and then take it out there after hours and throw it out.
So they can pull them out again.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. It's like stimulus.
You call them grinders too. I still call them grinders.
Well, yeah, I do too. Sorry.
No,
sorry, Hirschberger. It's forever grinders to me.
Yeah.
So
get used to something, it's hard to go away from it.
I just can't keep up. I'm stuck. It's only getting worse. So
did the cattle come first or the equipment business?
For me personally,
yeah.
I've always been a cow guy.
Yeah.
I come from Missouri. We have half-inch of topsoil and a bunch of clay and rock underneath that, and it's hay country and cow country where I'm from, and timber.
Yeah.
And Cattle have always been something I really enjoy and like and appreciate, specifically cow-calf type operation, and I kind of grew up in that environment. And if I'm in agriculture and can't be in anything else, that'll be part of what I'm in. So,
okay, so cow-calf guys, how are you feeling? I mean, these cattle prices are outrageous. So the calves, or if you fatten out what you calve, you're feeling pretty good about that. However, your input costs high, but hay prices have kind of collapsed, have they not?
they sure have
This year,
3 months.
a year like this just makes hay fast.
It does.
So that's probably a help.
But is it good quality hay?
Yeah.
You know, I see you got in the hay business.
Yeah. Get a horse and you have to bale. There's probably 50 round bales out there that.
I think there's 30 round bales and there was like 50 or 60 squares.
Yeah.
She just needs 2 rounds and about 50, 60 squares to get her through the winter. And then he'll eat on grass the rest of the summer.
Bartered that out with the neighbor to get that done.
Yeah.
Saw you out there with the square balers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Of an evening, yeah.
Yep. I have not so fond memories of baling 4 racks of hay and then coming in and unloading it into this barn and then going back out and baling 2 or 3 more, depending on.
Oh, we can talk all day about square bale stories, and I've
Fuck
got
that.
them. Yeah.
I was not we didn't go anywhere. Like, we didn't take vacations. And so I wasn't a well traveled kid or very bright. But even at a young age, I knew that this job sucked. Like, it's like people say, oh, we didn't know any better. You knew that job sucked. no matter what your frame of reference is.
And I don't know what you made for baling hay when you were a kid, but mine was it was a dime a bale, and that was there's no mechanization to it. It was picking them up off the ground, loading them on the rack, getting them to the barn, getting them in the barn, stacking them in the barn, and it was
$3 an hour when we did it. It's the way we got paid. And this barn was a Cadillac barn because it's got the forks in it, and so you pick them up off the.
Oh, so you had an easy childhood.
Pick 8 bales up and come up, run down the track, and then you'd yell, drop them, and you pulled it, and they would drop where you wanted them. So growing up here, baling hay, thought this sucked, and then you'd go bale for somebody that had the elevator, and you'd carry them all the way to the back, and then you're like, oh, wait, this is this
Home ain't
really
so bad,
sucks.
is it?
So,
Well,
but yeah.
where I grew up, it was a lot of 6, 8, 11 acre hay fields, cross creek. You couldn't put a rack behind the baler.
Yeah.
You pulled a trailer in behind a pickup and slung them on, or
It was bad enough stacking them once, let alone stacking them and restacking them when they roll off the rack. No, I don't blame you there, 100%. So, what do you think? Is the cattle business is a tough deal, and
historically, cattle guys make money once every 9-10 years,
right?
And if you can string a couple years together in a row, that's a success.
Yep.
And looks like we're going to do that.
And then everybody wants in, but we're not getting that.
Suddenly, everybody
We're not getting that. That's the thing I think that is most interesting is now, like maybe they've learned a page from the hog guys, and they're not going to just slit their own throats by just expanding like crazy, because the hog guys, they only need to make money.
Isn't that in human nature, though?
It is 100%.
I mean, we have such short-term memories when it comes to, all of a sudden, hey, I'm making money.
double it up.
Yep.
See money and expand.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, but part of that is agriculture, and we've talked about it on here. It's like everything costs more every year. And so as a farmer, your only mechanism to keep your standard of living the same is to grow, because
You're growing or you're shrinking. That's business.
Yeah.
That's just business anyway.
And so it pushes, it just by nature, it pushes everybody to get bigger. You'd like to think you're getting better, but
You think part of that's our tax code too?
Hey,
Well, that's not going to
You
get
got to
any
buy a
better
new piece
either.
of equipment every year, or you have, you're getting bigger, so there's always some bottleneck somewhere because
yeah.
of this piece. I've improved it. It's got faster or bigger or more capacity or whatever it is. So you got to upgrade this, and then you continually growing.
Yeah, and then the cost is greater, so you need to run more acres through it, which starts the wheel all over again.
Yeah, so then you just start doing custom work because that'll pay for it. And
That's another popular fallacy. So, yeah, it's not going to get any easier. So this year, as we've seen, we talked about on the intro, all of your big equipment manufacturers are cutting back because they see what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
So from a machinery standpoint, what are you seeing? Like, what's the trend as far as equipment? What do you think's going to take the biggest hit? And what do you think might be the best of the worst as far as bright spots for the equipment market?
I wish I could say this with 100% certainty because then I might be in a different line of work. But there's big equipment. I think you mentioned before X9 combines or class 9, class 10 combines, 24-row planters, stuff like that. That's taken the biggest hit and going to for the foreseeable future, especially. And you look back at 2013, 14, same kind of thing. The big OEMs, there's only one major buyer for those really big pieces, right? Those guys, when they have aged that out of their operation, whether it's 2 years or 4 years or they're rolling 1-year leases or whatever the thing is, the secondary market for those is always horrible.
Yep.
Because no operator of that size really wants to invest that close to new in something for that size of operation. They're going to go new.
Right.
So, and the same with these big combines, that's where the most bleeding is the larger class or larger horsepower combines, because that's what a class is it's horsepower and fuel tank capacity or however they rate that. But that's the biggest hit. Combines in general are rough. Application equipment is taking a pretty good hit.
Yep.
Your class 5, 6 combines, especially when you look at maybe more modern machines, but pre-emissions type machines, they're pretty. They've plateaued. There's a big foreign market for some of those machines. Because the technology doesn't require as much.
Tractors the same way. I mean, if you're sitting on an 80, if you're sitting on a 20 series or a 30 series John Deere.
Or 10 series with
any of those
injection pump.
The resale on those is pretty good right now because people like that. People like that horsepower without the emissions.
Sold a lot of 10 series with north of 10,000 hours that still looks pretty good, and they, you rebuild them. Keep right on ticking. And the value is not going to decrease as long as you keep it in reasonable shape for the next 5, 6, 8 years.
That's something that is really, it's got to be a real a real problem in the equipment if you're the manufacturer, because there was a time in there, and a lot of things have changed. I mean, part of that is tax code, part of that is interest rates, whatever. But there was a time in there where, guys would go buy a new, let's just say 9650, buy a 9650 combine, or they would trade a 9650. And the dealership already had somebody that wanted to buy that 2-year-old combine, and that guy was going to trade in maybe a 9600 or something like that. And there was a guy that appealed to. And there was this cycle where it all worked. But now, because of scale and because of interest rates and because of there's this group that requires that size of equipment, but the pool of people that require that size of equipment is way smaller than what it was at the scale we were 10 years ago. And so there's this gap. And that jump, there aren't near as many people that look at that and go, yeah, I think I'm interested in that. And so that all has to get sorted out. And your point about what you love about auctions is it's true price discovery. Some of that price discovery over the next year or two may be kind of painful for some parts of the market.
We're having those conversations now.
Yeah.
So our September auction, I'm telling, I'm straight up with folks. It's going to be painful. It's, everybody, we talk about everybody wants to get into expand the cattle business or, because things are good. Well, it's the same in the auction business, and with online stuff, everybody with a pickup truck, a laptop, and a cell phone camera can go around and do an online auction, right? Or think they can if they get hooked up with the right platform.
Right.
And when things are like this, in the pandemic, you had a lot of that coming in. But now that it's a little tougher, where are those guys at now?
Yeah.
But, and I forgot where I was going with that, but price discovery. And you see these conversations that we're having with our customers now, and like I say, it's a lot easier to have those when things are up. But now they're used to these, and just a very short. It's not like it's a gradual decline; it is fallen off a cliff, and that's something that I think with the supply chain issues we had during the pandemic, lower interest rates, all that kind, and it was easy to floor plan stuff. All these orders kept getting pushed in. All of a sudden, boom, it all comes together at once. Interest rates are like this. There's a glut of inventory out there now that's coming in, and it's,
nobody wants to buy.
Right. Well, one of the few things I took out of college that I remember was the simple economics supply-demand curve.
Yep.
And here we are, boys.
Yeah. I also feel like us as farmers, we haven't helped that any, because we really liked $7 corn, and we really liked $14 beans. And when we came off of that, we had $5 corn for a few seasons. And then if you really marketed well last year, that you could have gotten that, not saying that you did or you didn't, but we really like to put our heads in the sand. And going through last fall into winter, everybody said, the numbers were there that we were going to have a crop, and we weren't moving crop like we should. But I feel like a lot of guys just held on that, like, we're not going to break below $4. We're not going to break below this. And we kind of all had this mentality that somehow, hope and a prayer, we were going to hold all these grain markets together and I'm as guilty of it, because I looked at the Ukraine thing. From the time that started, I looked at that Ukraine thing, and I'm like, okay, the wheat market, where's all this wheat going to come from? Because I don't know about you, but I don't feel like running my combine through a wheat field while somebody's firing missiles back and forth over whatever, and you got Ukraine and Western Russia that, big grain producing. And I'm like, okay, that's going to drag these grain prices up. Never happened. And to this day, I can't quite figure out how it is that we've had that whole thing going on as long as it has. And it really hasn't. I mean, wheat spiked for a while, but it hasn't held together. And now then it is what it is. And it's drug everything else down too. Granted, we've got a lot of beans. I guess all of that to say, we've all had a lot of hope that somehow it was going to be whatever. And over the last few months, I feel like the whole ag economy and the how people feel everybody's been kind of propping themselves up. And then all of a sudden we're all like, oh, this is kind of a shit show. And, then you have the announcements about layoffs, and then you start seeing these because auction prices had held up pretty well.
In most segments, they had.
And then
tractors were the last one to fall off.
Yep.
And I kind of think I've been wrong before, but I kind of think we're going to, for harvest equipment, combines, and that kind of stuff, we're going to plateau for a while here for a month or two through at least the first half of harvest.
Yeah.
But I think we got farther to fall in some of that. So, some of these grain carts, some of these, harvest type semis, hopper trailers, that kind of stuff's going to stay pretty strong here for, relatively speaking, for a little bit before it falls off.
Well, yeah, because I think if you weren't affected by this shitty weather,
there's a big crop out there.
Right. And you're sitting there and you're thinking, I might need another hopper. I may need a bigger grain cart. I may need another wagon. And so I think that's going to help.
Is there as big a crop as we think though? Or is there saying?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. You and I talked about that earlier. I can't help but think that we have got nutrient deficiency out there because of all the rain we've had. Over the last, for this area, over the last 5 years, I mean, you can pretty much know that the fertilizer you put out there is going to be there because it has the fucking rain.
It wasn't going to leach out.
And I feel like we all kind of gotten lulled into being like, yep, good. And this year, I mean, I quit my rain gauge tally deal only goes to 10 inches, and I passed that up, I don't know how long ago, but we've had a lot of water. And I just keep looking at this corn, and I know that I'm deficient out there in places. Maybe not everywhere. We're pretty lucky in the fact the hog manure we have, for my money, it's a better quality fertilizer, and it stays a little better, but that doesn't mean that it stays through all this. So I don't know. I mean, a lot of guys are going and snagging ears and doing the math, and there's some big numbers out there, but I don't know what it'll be.
It's easy to, about anywhere you walk into the crop now, you can find just some hellacious ears and look at it and say, holy crap, you extrapolate that out over the whole field, starts adding up. But I guess what's telling to me a little bit is if you get above the crop. I've talked to some aerial applicators. I've got a drone I've put over some stuff, and you kind of look, and all of a sudden there's
starting to see
there's some stress spots, some holes, some drowned out spots, some other stuff that, I think it's going to be a good crop. But is it a bin buster? We'll see.
Yeah, and it depends. I mean, we've had so much variable weather problems across the whole Midwest.
And variable planting dates.
There isn't a state in the Midwest that I feel like you can look at and say, yep, that's... Now, USDA thinks, there's 5 states that are going to have record bean crops according to their deal.
Not us.
Not us. No, definitely not us. So, I don't know.
I'll tell you, the corn in Illinois looks really good. I've been across it a couple times, and I've had a hard time finding holes from what you can see at 70 mile an hour.
Yep.
Let's go back a little bit. I wanted to ask you, so with this downturn kind of equipment, as a business owner, being in that field, does that worry you at all? Do you feel like there's going to be, because I know you do like AeroQuip dealing, and stuff like that. Like, how are you going about approaching this kind of downturn, and what are you like telling your team, and how are you going to go about making it out the other side?
So one of the things that I kind of, we talked about, you're either growing or shrinking, right? But one of the principles that I've always used in handling cattle or whatever, and I apply it to businesses, slow is fast, fast is slow, and I want to grow, but I want to do it right. I don't want to explode and outkick your coverage. And so one of the things with us, we have diversified. So we're a retail dealer as well for about 8 or 9 different product lines, and a lot of those product lines deal with livestock, deal with cattle especially. And to your question about the downturn, one of the beauties of our business is things are good, you can sell equipment. Yep. All right. You don't have to try. Last couple of years, I've told my sales staff through the pandemic, hey, it's coming, guys. actually have to sell, not just answer the phone and have it.
Yep.
And we're seeing that now. But the beauty is it's easy to sell it when it's good. When things are bad, you have to sell. Our consignment, platform kind of shines. And so are those conversations always fun? No, but we're positioned to where we are a needed value for the ag community or construction community. We handle a lot of that stuff too, in whatever market it happens to be. So am I worried? Oh yeah. I mean, that's what business owners do. They worry all the time about everything from meeting payroll to managing regulations to the markets to, mostly stuff they can't control. But in terms of my business, I mean, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah. One thing I thought about was, and I'd say this has probably changed even in the time since you started your business, but the amount of semis, hoppers that are dealt now through the ag side over the last 10 years. I mean, today arguably the days are numbered for the guys buying big gravity wagons. Is that a true statement?
Mostly. It depends on how far away you are from the terminal. If you have a local integrator or whatever that's 2 miles down the road,
right,
you can wagon that stuff way easier, way cheaper, no specialized license, no extra insurances, fewer headaches to do that. So there's always going to be that
niche,
that spatial market for big wagons. But are more people integrating semis into their operation?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because if you drove by your auction, by your lot today, I'd say you have more semis, straight trucks on there than what I've seen before.
That ebbs and flows. I cannot wrap my head around why at some point, sometimes I'll have rows of tractors sitting there and some, then like right now we have not that many tractors and tons of semis. So I don't know what necessarily drives that part of it, other than just luck of the draw. But from the ag side of things, more people are integrating semis in their operation. I think the thought is a lot of times, well, I'm pulling a hopper 8 weeks out of the year with it. But I'll buy a flatbed trailer and I'll haul something for somebody, or I'll haul my dozer around with it, or they'll, haul something for the neighbor.
Now that's the Missouri right there coming out in him. Because when I was selling buildings, one of the I guess you'd say culture shocks that I had when I first started going down there, and it's moved north because there's more farmers in the state of Iowa now that have gotten on that dozer deal.
Everybody wants to backfill their own hog building.
Oh, motherfucker. But it was the damnedest thing. Well, that you're exactly right, because when I went down there and started selling buildings, it's like every Tom, Dick, and Harry down there had a frickin' dozer. Every Missouri farmer had a dozer. And that was just a weird deal to me, because you didn't see that up here, and it's gotten to be more so. But I guess it's just because there's so much shit to push around down there, and they all must think that there's black dirt underneath all that red dirt. If they just push enough of it away, that they'll find some.
Push it back up the hill, so over the time it washes down.
I guess something like that.
Constantly moving dirt.
Yeah, and if I had a nickel for every guy that would be like, I'll dig the hole myself, and then you'd be like, okay, we're gonna pour you
out a square.
We're gonna pour you a 5-inch floor, and it's got to be in within a tenth. And they go, a tenth of a foot? I'm like, no, a tenth of an inch. And they're like, well, we got a transit around here somewhere. And I'm like, no, buddy, that's not gonna get it. That's not gonna get it. You need to hire somebody to at least finish it. So they get kind of
find that in every facet of business.
Yep.
You always have people that, and some can.
Yeah.
I have that in my business. I mean, people think, I can put some pictures on Facebook Marketplace and sell it. Yes, you might.
Yep.
You might. You can't offer all the same things that we can offer, but right. You might find the guy, or you might wade through all the scammers and that kind of stuff to get your deal sold. But you find that in
Yep, absolutely.
That's with everything.
With everything.
We get it the same shit.
Well, anybody can do this.
Yeah, that's right.
It's easy as this whole social media it's easy. It's the easiest thing.
Just go out there and try it out for yourself.
A monkey could do it.
Yep.
I'm living proof they can.
That's right.
Now there better be somebody else.
Better believe it.
Does know what they're doing, but I can do it.
Yeah, there you go.
As long as you do all.
I
the
believe
hard
in
stuff.
you.
I
believe in you.
to
Yep.
really pull the weight
That's a
behind the
key.
scenes. Yeah.
I was gonna ask. So, what do you think is? How do we come out of this downturn? Like, is it just the economy's got to get better? Farmers need to make more money. Interest rates need to go down. I mean, we need to get a better president. You know, what do you think?
Oh, geez, that was a softball.
You don't have to hit it. You don't want.
I don't know. That's a lot in one question. I don't know where to hit that one. There's a lot going to happen in the next 6 months. I don't know what that is. But without getting political, I think no matter which way the election goes in November, there's going to be some kind of, correction's too soft of a word, but there's going to be some kind of unrest or somebody's. There's going to be a lot of people that really aren't happy for one reason or another, and that concerns me.
Yep.
And I think whoever's, the powers in place right now are going to do what they can, whether it's artificial or not, influencing the markets to try to keep things on as even keel as they can for the next few months. Katie bar the door come January or November or whatever that is, I don't know how to answer that question because I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't think any of it.
So what you're gonna do to solve it is just pick up the phone and start dialing, start calling.
We're gonna work as hard as we can, keep putting one foot in front of the other, and
control the controllables.
I tell my customers that all the time when they say and they want to control an auction or whatever. Hey, we do the things that we can control. We control them the right way, and the things we can't control tend to fall into place most of the time.
Yep. When you started your own business, was it during a time? Because I'm young, I don't know the equipment trends of high, low, high, low. I know we just went through a period of super high, and now we're coming back down. But when you started, was it a time where you did have to pick up the phone and call a bunch because it wasn't so
I think
good?
Any business you start, you're going to do that, especially in some kind of sales. You got to beat the streets.
Yep.
You got to pick up the phone. You got to cold call. You got to prospect. Now, I don't do any of that.
Right.
But I've sales guys that do, especially when they first come on until they build their book of business, and then you have people that you get your name out there and they kind of come back to you. But yeah, there was a lot of that in the beginning, Sawyer, that I would be driving along. I'd see something for sale on the highway. I got a couple, not estate, but retirement sales that way. Driving along, there's a combine sitting out there with a sign on it. Left my card in it, tried to call the guy, didn't answer, but he called me back later, and we wound up getting 4 tractors and combine and grain cart, and I just and you start doing that and doing a good job at it and working hard for people and showing what you can do and taking that chore off their plates.
Yep.
And
sometimes it's as easy as just being the one to ask.
You'd be amazed.
Yep.
And one of my favorite sayings is the devil's in the details, and that just doing the little things right.
Yep.
The simplest, dumbest things you can think of. I mean, just doing them right.
Yep.
Even as simple as, hey, I'll call you back in 2 hours, and you call them back in 2 hours.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And during the pandemic, that said a lot to a lot of people. And my business experienced tremendous growth during the pandemic. Because you didn't have to be a salesman during the pandemic in the true form of serving your customer. And so consequently, a lot of your, salesmen that worked for maybe OEMs or other companies, they didn't have to try, so they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But we continued to push that and to try and to continue doing true, bona fide, proven sales techniques, responding professionally, timely, prompt communication, even stuff. I mean, I'm particular about how stuff is spelled. I'm a grammar Nazi internally when, don't send that out. It doesn't look right, and just those little things is really, over time, it snowballs.
So you've had to make the transition because when you started, you were the salesman. You were the guy taking the pictures. You were the guy writing the description because you were a two-person shop, really, you and your wife.
Yep.
How much of a challenge has it been as you've expanded? Because, as you said, now you're not the guy doing that because you have people that you're responsible for. So how hard, or maybe it wasn't hard, to learn those skills to become the manager instead of the salesman?
You act like I've learned them.
Well, I know, but this is like a lot of people struggle with that.
I struggle with it. Yeah, it's part and parcel to business, and I've always considered myself good at representing equipment and selling equipment. That's what I like to do.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
But part of the growth trajectory of a business is you don't get to do what you like to do for very long if it's any kind of successful at all.
Yep.
And so I've had to learn. I continue to learn leadership, managing business, managing people, managing employees, and I am nowhere near an expert on that. We keep trying every day, and there's certain things you get frustrated with, and there's certain things that you have to learn to let go as part of that personal and business growth. That, hey, that's not the way I do it. Don't like it, but I got to be okay with it. And that's hopefully that answers your question. But I think other business owners can relate to that. I don't know that I've learned it, but
Trying every day.
Right?
Yeah. What position was when you started to grow? What was the first position that you hired a full-time person for?
So I don't know if you remember the little red shed at my house when we grew out of the bedroom, which didn't take very long. I went up to Kelowna and I bought one of those portable buildings and made a pad there at the house and ran electric to it and everything. And we created an office there and then did work out of the farm shop there on my barn. And I hired a girl there, I want to say 2017-ish.
Yep.
And she was part-time at first, then grew into full-time pretty quickly. And she did everything from some of the book work.
Yep.
Heather still did a lot of that. My wife did a lot of that, but she did some of the book work, all the invoicing, answering phones, a lot of the uploading data onto the internet.
Yep.
And
she was your executive assistant.
And more.
Yep.
And more. And she stayed with me until just this past January, and wanted to be closer to home and closer to her kids. She was driving 45, 50 minutes one way, but that was the first person I hired.
Yeah.
And that
was that mostly because, probably because you felt that you needed to be out meeting with the customers.
Once it starts to grow, you can't, if you get bogged down in the invoicing and you're missing stuff, you're missing tons of stuff.
Yeah.
So you have to have somebody that does that. And that's the most important thing, and doing it right too.
Yeah. If you can't bill, you can't receive. If you don't receive, you're going to be out of business pretty fast.
Right. And if you get bogged down in it's unfair to call it minutia.
Yeah.
But all those little details that are super important, but you can easily get bogged down in, then all of a sudden you're going to come to a screeching halt because you're bogged down in that, and you can't sell, you can't bring in more stuff, you can't, you can't market it, all that.
What about balance? Everybody wants balance nowadays. Do you have any of that as a business owner? That's something I really struggle with.
And you will continue to struggle.
Work-life balance is pretty much not a thing for us
wife
anyway.
Would probably be a better one to talk about that topic. The work-life balance is very tough, and especially for a business as young as ours, right? I mean, we're 2016 and now we're 8 years in, a little over 8 years in, and that's young on the business spectrum. It's tough. I got younger kids, and it seems like you bounce from work to ball practices to 4-H meetings to getting the grass mowed to cattle chores to whatever, and I don't know, is there a work-life balance, or do you kind of go from one fire to the other at times?
Yeah.
It's part of the phase you're in that you just got to, I think, and I've found this out recently or been studying it recently, you got to start systemization. You got to start building processes in to make me not as important to the business, right?
Yeah. Do you do that in the business, and then do you also do that kind of in your personal life too? Because like I feel like for me, I tell Kat all the time, for us to have a personal life, like we got to be on our shit when it comes to our time, so we can build time to even have time to like just hang out, her and I, Mm-hmm. You do that too? Like, do you feel like you have to?
So you going to get a horse? Is that what you're saying?
Hell no. Hell no. We don't need another thing to take care of. No chance.
Time management, is critical and something I'm becoming more aware of. We're doing some business development type stuff right now, and logging your time. I've found is pretty eye opening when you see where your time's going. Yep. And where it's getting bogged down, and what's really slowing stuff down is kind of cool to see in a way. So
future,
yeah.
So when you sit and you think like, where do you want KDK to be 5 years from now?
Where do you want to be? Do you want to be sipping on a Mai Tai or on a beach somewhere, or do you want to just raise? Do you want to have a nice cattle ranch?
It's really hard for me to just sit still. Like, my wife loves to go to the beach, and she can, you ask her, she'll sit on a beach for a week, read a book, sip a drink, and that's her idea of heaven.
Yep.
And I've done that with her a couple of times, but a couple hours, and I'm looking for a hill to go climb or something,
I wonder what that boat's worth. Hey, you want to sell that boat?
There we go. Might have an auction by the end of the week on the beach. Line them all up.
Yep.
Yep. But so I always got to be doing something. And as far as the future of the business goes, we want to continue to grow it at the right pace. We'd like to do some things like add some land sales to it, to what we can offer. Yeah. We currently do some strategic partnerships with some other guys on so we can offer both land and equipment sales for retirements or estates or whatever. Like to maybe grow that segment of the business. As you've said to me multiple times, my lot's too small. I don't know that I would trade that location for it's super easy access, super high visibility.
Yep.
But that's something that may need to be addressed in the future. But ultimately, I would really like to get my business to the point where I'm not as important to it. Mm-hmm. And that's going to take.
That's a good
changes.
Goal to have, because I think that right there is a catch that a lot of business owners fall into.
Oh, it ain't easy.
They build a business
with the intent in mind of freedom, but they never get it.
Except they're literally the linchpin of the business, to where they wake up and
they're working a job.
Yeah, and they want to remove themselves from the business, and then they realize they can't, because they are the glue of the business.
Them, they don't run it.
Yeah. And so knowing that up front, that's a good thing.
My kids are young. My wife reminds me a lot that we don't get that time back, and a big motivating factor for me is, I have one son with some hearing and vision issues that are going to progressively get worse. Yep. That weighs really heavily on me, and I do definitely want to, get my business to a point where it allows me to spend some time with all my kids and help them grow and experience, some stuff that I was blessed enough to experience. And at the same time, not let my employees down.
Yeah.
take that responsibility very seriously, that they got families to feed, and I feel like we have a service to perform to the community too.
Yep.
And so you got to balance all those responsibilities and prioritize them, and hopefully that and make the right decisions going through all that. So
Land prices.
yeah.
What do you think about those? Long term, do you think they're going to come down, or you think they're going to keep going?
Are we top or are we not top? And
We're never at top.
depends on your
Depends on
window.
your frame of reference.
Depends on your window.
If you're going to look at land over the next 2 years, we probably topped out.
Yeah.
I'm sure we are. I mean, we're falling off 20, 30% right now, statewide, I'm guessing, but I'm not far off. Maybe regionally, you won't see those numbers depending on where you're at, what, is
County-wise, you won't
county-wise,
see,
you may not see that in Washington County, especially if it's a square flat 80 with no hog building pressure or whatever, but or who's surrounding it, what kind of money's surrounding it and who wants to add it to their operation, who can cash flow it. But overall, I definitely think we've at least plateaued and probably fallen off. But I think we saw this in, was it 2008?
Yep.
For sure. And then again, kind of, was it 2014-ish? You kind of a dip, but then it's back up. And it depends on interest rates.
Yep.
Right now, with interest rates the way they are, it's kind of taking the investor buyers out of the market, because those folks can get a return on their money in other markets.
Pretty safe. They can get a pretty decent return and a pretty safe investment outside of land.
Right.
Yeah.
If we see interest rates fall,
They'll be back at it.
then I think they'll be back at it. Depends on administration and policies and that kind of stuff. But overall, I don't see us falling off hard on land right now unless something catastrophic happens, because I still think land is a good investment.
Yep.
It's like anything else. You got to look at it 10, 20 year picture, not 18 months, 24 months kind of thing.
Well said. Yeah.
Wow, that's high praise.
That was you strapped some shit on everybody today. That was a good one. Real good one.
Told him you were the ringer.
Yep. I think I was going to say, I forgot what I was going to say when you were talking about, not wanting to be a part of the, take a step back off the business eventually and, step away and maybe find some more time. I think you could die happy just in a cattle pasture. Is that a good assessment?
Yeah.
It depends. I mean, it depends if you just natural causes or a cow kicks you right square in the gut. I mean,
I've got some scars I can show you where that's happened, but I like my cows, and kids like them too. It's one thing about raising cattle, livestock in general anyway, but especially cattle that I think get to be, with the cattle, they're as close to real world life and death as far as nature that we do in production agriculture.
Yep.
Because at least in my frame of reference, they're on pasture.
Yep.
And so that tends to help teach kids more about life and death and outside influences and even a business approach to it. And I want that for my kids.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
And
well, we definitely don't have enough farm kids.
we don't.
So we've talked about this many times, but so much of middle America society has been built on farm kids. And if you were a business owner, I don't care what business, we're kind of the last of that generation, because it was just it was like an unwritten rule. If somebody hired you to do something, they found out you were a farm kid, they're like, oh, go hook onto that trailer. Go hook on that trailer. Or, hey, can you weld this? Or, oh, hey, go do this, because you're a farm kid. So chances are you might not set the world on fire, but you knew how to hook up a trailer. You probably knew how to weld. You probably knew a little carpentry skills. You were just a well-rounded, and you didn't realize it at the time. I mean, you just didn't realize it. But today, our society does not produce near as many young people that are well-rounded. And agriculture is one of
especially
the
agriculture.
last places where they can get that kind of experience. So,
I don't know if I 100% agree with that.
okay.
And I see a lot of farm kids, and I have farm kids that apply to work for me, and
Yep.
I've had some good ones. I got some good ones now.
Yep.
But it's getting harder and harder to find. I don't make the assumption anymore that a farm kid knows what they're doing.
Oh, no, I agree with you 100%.
And there's so many that just because they're a steering wheel holder in a tractor that does everything for you,
Yes.
does
100%.
not mean you can figure out what caused something to break down and rig it together with something that'll get you through the end of the task.
Right.
You know?
No, I agree
Your
with you.
generation, yes. My generation, no. And I'll be the first to admit it. I wouldn't know how to do that. You know, I wasn't raised that way because it
wasn't
all
here.
the tech. You weren't here, but the technology. You know, you can't just start ripping shit out of a tractor and fixing it yourself now. I mean, you can't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always thought like there's got to be something, and maybe this is just trade school, but like there's got to be a way because you know I think urbanization's also done that. You know, there's just less farms, less farm kids in general.
Yep.
But
Well, look at vehicles now.
yeah,
Vehicles all but drive for you, and some of them drive for you. You got lane assist where your seat vibrates if you get too close to the white line. I mean, I have that. My wife rides there, and she tells me when I'm getting too close. I hope she don't listen to this. But you they parallel park for you. I hate getting in a rental car.
Yep.
And I have my cruise set on 75 or 80 because I'm in Montana or faster. And like, why is this dadgum thing slowing me down to 72 mile an hour? And I look 300 yards out and there's a car up there. Well, no,
The
let me
software
think
doesn't understand drafting.
There you go. But technology thinks too much for people, and you don't have to problem solve. And I think that's what.
Yeah, I don't know if I've told this story on here or not, and you stop me if I have. But, you know, you forget about stuff. You just don't think about stuff that you did as being anything, whatever. But you talk about vehicles. Like when I was 16 years old, a buddy of mine had a 327. Bought a GTO that had a 455 in it. And he decided that he was going to rebuild it, punch it 30 over, rebuild it. So he went and got the How to Overhaul Your 455 book from Chilton's or whatever. And in a dirty garage up by Kelowna, Wellman area, just pulled that thing out. Somebody got an engine hoist, pulled it out. And between him and all of his friends, I don't think any of them really knew what we were doing, but we all, knew what end of a wrench was what.
Yep.
Tore that whole thing down, took it to Napa, had them, do the machine work, put it all back together, put it back in there. Like 16-year-old kids.
Pass everything but a gas station.
You couldn't, if I opened the hood on my Jeep, I'd just close it because I wouldn't even try it.
Same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
And that's part of the world that's different, but it's also kind of a mentality. I've seen people talk about how like owner's manuals of cars in the 50s, 60s, 70s, like in there they told you how to set the valve timing, how to do this, how to do that, because people actually worked on their own stuff.
yeah. I was gonna say I would argue with you that even if they were as easy to work on now as they were back then, I guess not easy, but accessible to work on, I still don't think you'd have 16-year-old kids doing that because your buddy probably got bored enough
Yeah.
that he needed something to stimulate his mind,
Well,
that he needed to do something, that he
we-
couldn't be on this thing all fucking day long.
And we had tight-ass parents that if he went
Yeah.
to his parents and said, hey, I want to soup this car. I want to soup this car up. Will you pay for me to take this thing to the hot rod shop? Mom would go, hell no, you're not doing any of that. But if you just said, hey, we're going to rebuild this, and they're like, oh yeah, well, you just don't bother me, and use your own money, then they'd let you get by with it.
I know a couple mechanics that they're our age, you're my age,
Yep.
that had it that timed it. They knew how many minutes it would take them to change a clutch.
Sure.
In a whatever. And I know a guy that works for Cappers that from Kyoto.
Yep.
You probably know what I'm talking about, but he's
Yep.
like, one year for prom, we was out the night before, we tore a clutch out of something, and that afternoon we had a new one shoved in there, and
Yep. Off we went.
in 45 minutes or whatever, and off
Yep.
they went to prom, and shoot,
Yep.
not anymore.
Yeah, so it is. It's just everything changes. And we have a hell of a lot of things that are much better that I'm very thankful for. Technology's wonderful.
Creature comforts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Life has definitely gotten easier.
But is that necessarily a good thing?
I don't know whether that's better or not.
We're softer, that's for sure.
We're definitely
Yep.
softer.
Better get them out there in that pasture then.
We are softer.
Better get them in the hog barn. Better get them out there with some cows.
Yep. Better teach them how to take a fuse and wrap it in tinfoil and put it back in and see if that'll run on that.
Or
I don't think you've
A
made
nail
me do
works,
that
too.
yet. But.
For a little while. For a little while.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up, guys.
Hey,
okay,
one
go
more
ahead.
thing. One more time. When's your auction and how do people find you?
Yeah, so we got an auction coming up in September. It's our pre-harvest auction. We're going to have lots of cool stuff, a couple retirements on there. One thing you mentioned earlier, there's a 1976 Mercury Marquis Euroed in as a
Don't
youngster.
mention that. I don't need more competitive bidders.
Cool car. Anyway, that's just one of the things going to be on our auction. But we got lots of cool stuff to look at. You can check it out at kdkgroup.com. Give us a call.
Go
at the
buy the
office.
combine next to it. Don't bid
Buy the
on-
combine
don't
next to
bid
it.
on
That's
the
a
station
nice
wagon.
local owned combine. You bet. We always have a wide variety, and we can still consign. Our auction deadline's August 30th, so
Okay.
we can still take them, and we sure will.
All right. Well, I don't think I got to say much else. That's going to wrap it up, guys. If you got any value from the show, share it out with who you know. Leave a review. Go check out KDK, and we'll see you guys next week for another episode.